Hello, everyone. My name is Ned Dennison. I'm the chairperson of the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame. We have with us today an honoree from University of Pittsburgh, Marian Cassidy, who won two majors, 1990 and 1992, both 36 kilometers, Atlantic City and Capri, Naples. Say hello, Marian.
Hello.
What I wanted to talk to you about today, Marian, was the difference between, say, the Olympic 10Ks and the kind of racing you were doing just a few years ago. So the Olympic 10K we can characterize as often in a sheltered rowing basin, often loops of a course, in typically tech suits, and many of the top swimmers, if not all the top swimmers, are funded by their national organizations, so their travel's paid for, and many of them are receiving an annual stipend, which is more than enough for people to live on. It's probably a good description. This is the best of them. In your day, talk to us a little bit about being a swimmer and going off to, say, Capri, Naples. I presume the air ticket arrived and a packet of cash, and the suite at the hotel was arranged for you.
Right, right. It's come the open water racing has come a long, long way from even when the time I was swimming. And when I was swimming, I know it was way better than it was before. I came in right in when I finished my college career in 1988, and I got into the professional circuit at the time where I don't think anything was under 21 miles. I don't think there was anything shorter than that. Um, and it was not yet in the FINA World Cup days. I was in the group as it transitioned into that and got more official, and we had the World Cup racing like that. But when I first started, it was an interesting experience. My first race was Atlantic City. My brother was actually doing it as well. And I was a little bit shocked, but the night before the race, all the people in the race sat around and talked about what the plan was going to be to how the money's divided. Like that's what we did as the race. What is first place amount gonna? They said they sat down and said, "Here's the purse. We finally know the amount, and we're gonna divide it up accordingly." And sat around with the 25, 30 people who were swimming, who were banking on whether they were gonna win or if yeah, we it was our master of ceremonies was basically usually in that early time for me was Claudio Plit from Argentina, and he was a masterful man who at that point, I don't even know how old he was at that point, but he had made open water swimming his career. And he was, unbelievably eloquent in the way he would manipulate the crowd to decide on how the purse was going to be split. So it was a pretty interesting experience. And
So you were swimming in a normal kind of Speedo outfit.
yes,
You were in the water at the same time as your brother, so you're able to give him an elbow and a kick every now and then.
yes.
And I'm curious. I think now when I look at the Olympic swimming, it's a bit like the Tour de France. There's a kind of the Pendleton, and there's all these tactics. When you did your first Atlantic City, was there anybody around you, or just two really good-looking guys in a rowboat?
They're really good looking guys in a rowboat. And
I
you
won't
just
ask if
took
that
off like
distracted you.
right. When I didn't realize, like, I thought my first race, I thought, oh, I need to be a little cautious. And I look around and everybody took off. And I was like, I guess I have to go. That was a my learning curve was very quick on the circuit on how to get out quickly. I thought, oh, I'm swimming, 20, whatever it is, 21 miles. I've never done this before. I better start slow. Well, nobody did back then. There were no tactics. The tactic was get out and lose everybody.
So just to walk you through Atlantic City. So I'm assuming that you hadn't had experience within the first sort of an hour and a half or 2 hours of swimming in water this deep, the
Right,
muddy part.
right, right. That year, the inlet and the stuff wasn't bad, but I've had years, in that particular race where I was probably in the very same level of shape. I've had times that are 4 hours different because of the current, because of the timing of going through the inlet.
And
And
that first big bridge being moved away from you as you swam.
yes, yes, yes.
And as you rounded into the ocean and those three rock berms or three rock jetties where Regent Le Corsier told me he lost his two front teeth. How close did you get to those rocks?
I did not, but early on, I did not get very close to those rocks. But as I got more experienced, I knew how to do that. And yeah, you learn the tricks of the trade. And I remember coming around Longport Jetty one year, and I saw Paul Asmuth like dolphin diving through the. I'm like, well, that guy can do it. He's won this how many times? I'm sure I'm allowed to do it. So you just did it. Otherwise, you wouldn't move.
So let's go to Capri, Naples, where you again 36 kilometers. You would have had your own boat. Did you have your own sort of crew handler coach that you knew, or was it somebody that
Yeah,
just kind of acquired you?
I had one person with me that was helping me, which was great. Um, but they did not speak Italian. So it was a little dicey on the there, but I really lucked out with a great crew. Um, and I had a very nice race with a woman from Hungary, I think it was. And we were together for 4 hours. Like not necessarily together, her boat, my boat, and we were swimming along. Um, so that was helpful because you thought, well, these people seem to be doing it right. Hopefully we're doing it right. But you're really out there in the middle of nowhere and you really have not, your first time you really don't have any real experience and you're just hopeful. I ended up with a great crew that did a great job for me and I had seemed to have a really good line. It worked out. I've had times in races where that doesn't work out, where your boat sinks and you have to go it yourself and you feed off someone else's boat.
So one of the things that strikes me is one of the things that was easier in your era was having your own boat next to you with your own person in it. I'm not an elite racer, but I've done some solo swims, and the way I describe it is in the solo swim, there's always a pair of loving eyes watching you all the time.
Yeah.
And I tell the crew, I give written instructions to the crew. They're supposed to lie to me. So you've never looked better, Ned. You're going to break the course record. Your strokes are powerful. Slow down the kicks because you're disturbing the dolphins. Whereas in the swimming these days, the Olympians maybe do a 2.5 kilometer loop without any direct coaching. and then they
Right.
come in for a feed, and I'm guessing there's not a whole lot of coaching at the feed,
No.
and off they go again.
Right.
Um, how important was that coaching in the boat to you?
Oh, definitely great. I think having the boat was amazing in the sense where also in your feeding, and I understand it's different in a 2 hour race versus a 7 hour race. But I used to, depending on the temperature of the water, I would feed every 15 to 20 minutes, right? And these guys doing their loops, if they're doing 3 loops, they're not getting that feed. And the end of a 2 hour race, that is gonna factor in, right? On how well they're able to use their speed and fight for the finish. So they have to be much more tactical on whether the feeding station is worth the extra distance and how many times they need to do it. And they have to have their wits about them to do it. Whereas when you were doing the longer things, you just knew every time they held out the cup, you had to come get it. And you didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to think about, and they would watch the temperature and if it was hot, if they dropped me down to every 15. Like I didn't have to do any of that part of the tactical end of things.
What tactics did you do besides lobbying for more prize money on the night before with Claudio?
Um, Mostly just you just raced. Like that's what it was, not any as I said earlier, I learned quickly that there isn't really, you don't, it's one speed. You get out and you go. Now, you may die along the way because it's a 7 hour race and you may not hold that speed. But if you want to be up at the front, you got to go with the big dogs, right? You got to be ready because they're going.
Did you did you
They're
did you focus on a female competitor? Did you focus on a male in the race and say, I want to stay, within 100 meters of James Kegley?
Yeah, James used to help me a lot in that regard where when I first got on the circuit, he was there and had been there for a while. He was good friends with my brother. So he took me under his wing and he would give me a lot of pointers. So I would often like look for where he was and try and be near him, and kind of gauge what to do because I feel like he gave me a lot of hints along the way. Um, so that was helpful for me. I wouldn't say I really focused on any like going out with somebody, except we had this one race that was in Alassio in Italy along the coast, and it was like a almost like a Tour de Italy, Tour de France, where we raced 7 days in a row. And we stayed in Alassio, and then we got driven to the start of every of each day. We got driven somewhere, and we did generally like a 3 to 5K race. And then on the last day, it was a 7K, maybe around or like closer in front of the town, Alassio, where we were based. And that one was really interesting because there was no support boats for that. So they just dropped you off and it wasn't anything we were used to. And we were just to look for the one buoy and one lane rope on where to turn in. So you'd never seen where to turn in. You'd never been in this place before. And you just swam in the ocean or in the sea, whatever, until you thought you saw a buoy and you hung a right and went into the shore. So
Okay,
if
well
you were
that's
by
better than
yourself, you
that's
were,
better than one of the ones I had, which was the end of the race. You should see some guys with a barbecue. The guy in front of me never saw them, but I saw them, so I beat him
yeah,
in that one. Um,
yeah. So that one
let's
was interesting because I learned quickly, we learned quickly like how to handle, like you had to handle yourself. and you weren't gonna have feedings, you weren't gonna have this. And there was a big guy, Michael, oh, I don't remember his last name, from, I don't know where he was from, somewhere in Eastern Europe. And he was big and tall, and he always went out nice and fast. And I'd like to get right behind him because he was a great he'd break the water for you easily. And I think on the second or third day, I looked at him and he had something in his suit. And I'm like, what's in your suit? He pulled out a banana and a juice box. And he said, I'm ready today. He was hungry there. And he was ready. It was interesting.
So in these trips to Italy, I presume you made your own travel arrangements, you paid your own
Yes.
costs, and you hoped you got enough prize money or appearance money or something to at least not go into the
Yeah,
poorhouse.
right. And they were pretty good, depending on where you were, they were pretty good about putting you up. So, and sometimes like inside Italy, they had we rode a bus from the Alassio to Capri. And we did, sometimes they would handle that, sort of put all 40, 50 people on a bus and send us somewhere. And then we'd go out to the shopping malls and sign autographs.
Okay,
And they'd
cool.
have a whole week where we'd do all these little promos. And it was interesting.
Um, Talk to me about, let's take 1992 as an example. So you would have you woken up on the 1st of January, you've got a big race coming up in the summer. Um, how did you train? What kind of training did you do? Did you have any coaching? Were you doing 25,000 meters a week? Were you doing 80,000? What, give me some idea
Right.
of what that was like.
I
Were
had
you
a
working
little
another
bit,
job?
right. I had a little bit of an unconventional training, wouldn't recommend it. So it was during the collegiate season, I was coaching. So at the time I was doing most of my racing, I was at Florida State as an assistant coach, and my brother was there too. And Jay Wilkerson was a swimmer at Florida State who did a lot of these races as well. So I did have a training partner, but during the coaching season, basically from September till after NCAA's in March, I really didn't do a lot of training because I was also trying to get my master's and do coaching, and I didn't have a lot of time. I would swim generally 4 to 5 days a week in this group called the Lunch Bunch. And it was it was like an hour in the middle of the day, like from 11:30 to 12:30 with a bunch of people, like masters type swimmers and stuff. And we just hammer out, like 3,500, 4 grand. And I just do that. That was my training for during the school year. And then once the once NCAA's were over, I would hop in and they would let me train with the college kids and Jay. So it was our spring training. I didn't have to be on deck as much. So I would jump in the distance lane with the Florida State kids and just train. And then I would take it up to, 50K a week and maybe a little more sometimes. And Jay and I would go on the weekends to different places to swim. We had some great places to swim. And there was a great place that was almost like a flume in the middle of the state. We would drive there and just like swim almost in a full regular rushing stream that was like a flume, and we'd just do it for a couple hours. Sometimes we'd drive 3 hours to Jacksonville and do like a 10 mile in the ocean. And then a lot of times we swam in we had this little cove called Apalachicola in right outside of Tallahassee, and we would take these old bags like that we would hook onto some of the posts out there that would be with our water bottles and stuff, and we would do big circuits and do that. So I was pretty lucky that I had him around.
And
My
did Jay
brother would
take
sometimes
did
come with us, but
did,
sometimes not, you
did Jay
know.
take you because he was a bit quicker than you, and there were plenty of alligators and sharks? Were you
Yes,
were you Plan A?
right. We did used to go to Wakulla Springs, and we had to be very careful at where we swam because the alligators did not like to share their space. So but it was the same temperature year round, so we could swim there at any time. Because in Tallahassee, it would get cold.
And what do you think the Olympic swimmers are training in a week?
Well, I think it's probably pretty, it just depends on, well, I think they probably are back in that. They're up there. They must be 60 to 80 is my guess, right? On their heavy time in the year to have a great 10K. Maybe 50, but I
And you
think they're
didn't you didn't you
probably
didn't go to these sponsored high altitude training camps?
no. Like we went to the Olympic Training Center when I was training, and Penny Dean would run those for us, and we'd swim in this lake in Colorado Springs. So we got some high altitude training there, but it was a golf course. Sometimes golf balls would come flying in.
If we took you in 1992, right before one of your big competitions, and we dropped you in the 10K Olympic race, how would you do?
I really, you mentioned this before, and I thought about it. That's 30 some years ago. I don't think I would be very good. I think that maybe I mean, I don't know. I think one, I always did better in the rougher swims. So, like you said, they're a little bit more controlled now. And that's not my gift. But I could maybe do better in something more challenging, maybe like Paris, where it was a lot more current involved and you know what to do. But I don't know. It's quite a few
If
years
I took
ago.
the top 15 women from the Tokyo Games and we transported them back to Atlantic City in the 1990s, would any of them beat you?
Oh, I don't know, but maybe. I think it's apples and oranges completely, right? And if for their first go round, they might really struggle if the current and weather is bad. They don't know what they're doing. It
So
could be
so
very tough.
they run out of water in the muddy part. They can't understand why the bridge isn't getting closer. They're 1,000 meters from the rock berm going backwards and can't understand how you seem to be climbing over the thing. And then when they get to the back bay, um, you don't seem to be doing a straight line. You seem to be dodging in and out of piers, and they're out in
Yeah,
the middle just trying to understand why they're going backwards again.
right, right. Just a
And then
different animal.
the family you stayed with every year was cheering you on, and no one was cheering them.
Right, 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 right.
Did you watch Paris?
I did. I did. I loved it. I thought it was great. I I am very thankful that open water is in the Olympics. And I'm happy in regards to any which way it can be. I like that it was a different version. And I liked that, those so many of them rose to the challenge. And it was an exciting race to watch. But I understand it's very, very different from what a lot of them train, right? So, um, and ultimately, we want to make sure we keep the viewership. And whichever way we need to do that, we want to keep doing that so we can continue to keep open water in the Olympics.
as it came down towards the end, I was watching the two gals in front, and I'm thinking to myself, the poor woman leading this race, she must know it's Sharon behind her. And she must remember that Sharon got silver to Katie Ledecky in the World Championships 400 meters just a few years earlier. And of all the people you wanted on your toes at that given moment, you didn't want Sharon right behind her. So I felt like it was just unfolding. There was no doubt of it. I just felt so sorry for the poor woman who'd been leading it because she
I
was going to get
know.
hammered.
I know. It was exciting though. It
It
was
was.
exciting.
We had I live in Ireland, and we had our own local excitement. We had our first ever Olympic gold medalist Daniel Whiffen in the 1500, which is
Right.
the whole country was completely energized. And then because he did well in the 1500, he got entered in the men's 10K. I think it was probably his first ever open water swim,
I would agree.
and he finished it, and he said afterwards something like, I'm just so happy I finished it, and I'm never, ever, ever doing anything like that again. It's just
Right. Right.
to
Right.
kind of go from the podium in the 1500 to being in an alternate universe of like what is
Right.
going on here.
Right. But there are some that have mastered both, right? Florian
The German
and
Florian is doing exceptionally well, and I was impressed in Tokyo how he just decided to go out fast against
right.
all conventional wisdom. We remember the Australian in Rio who got reeled in by everybody. But Florian just said, okay, I got this, and just
Yeah.
blew them all away from the first stroke.
Right. And Paul Trineri does such a great job. And I will say, I absolutely love the shootout. I just think that is exciting as an opportunity. I would have really liked that. And I know that it's a lot shorter than the races I did, but I think I would have really liked that. I think that would have been fun.
No, it has been popular with the audiences. There were some suggestions that Los Angeles might be a little bit like the old days along the coast, with everybody with their own boat with their name on it, which would have been kind of a throwback, which would have been kind of really interesting because you really have to be a fan to look at a pack of seven swimmers and
Right,
understand who's who. Even though
right,
Martin from the Netherlands painted my name on his head, I could spot him easy, but it's not easy sometimes.
right, right. It is.
Any final thoughts for differences between then and now that just
Um,
not a whole lot of people would understand? Something strange,
yeah, I
unusual?
think I love that they can earn money and earn a living and do it this way. When I think about how far it's come, and I do I'm nostalgic about the long races we did and still aware that a 10K is not shabby. Right? It's still a work,
At a pace that most of us can't sprint at.
right?
The other thought that I wanted to explore with you is it seems to me that the swimmers today, they fly in, they their coaches keep them isolated, they do their swims and they leave. When you were swimming, the stories about everybody on cots in the gymnasium in Lac Saint Jean or the
Yeah,
50 people on the bus ride in Italy.
yeah,
You had an opportunity to kind of meet your competitors, your colleagues, um, the swimmers of the opposite sex, whatever it might have been. Um, there's stories of the night after the swim and Phil Rush in the bar. You guys had some experiences that I don't think they're having today.
right. I would agree. Now, I think that there's still a little bit of that in some of the races that happen like in Europe where they race weekend to weekend or every other weekend. I do think that the the swimmers that are able to participate in that have a little bit of the comradeship that we were able to. That's just how we moved. We moved to keep our sport alive. We had to work together, and that was something that it was just natural. And I know that if I'm going to Australia, I'm calling up Shelly and staying on her couch. And if you have that I've built through life, that's amazing. That is not as easy here, in these days. But swimming is an interesting sport, and the open waters having more ability to race each other and do more races, and that really bond. Swimmers will bond, right?
The other thing some of the current swimmers have is they'll go do 3 6 months training together. So there's a
Right.
number of them have gone training together in Italy. I remember interviewing Stoichev and Thomas Lurtz. They went up
Yeah.
and trained at Thomas's pool. Thomas famously said that Petter went home for Christmas, and Thomas opened the pool on Christmas Day and did 2 sessions because he just wanted to know next time they were racing that he had done more than Petter. So I
That's
think when
great.
you get the top competitors in the world training together,
Yeah.
beating each other up every single lap, every single minute, in the weight room, whatever it must be, you build a certain bond in that, and it
Yes.
must improve your competitiveness unbelievably.
Yeah. I think that's great. That's an amazing thing they have. And in the day of social media, they can be more, more connected as well.
Yeah.
So they just do it a little differently. One of the things when we finish those big races, one of the winning things was you could get on a phone and call home for free. That was part of, like, when you finished the race, they gave you a space where there were all these phones, and we would call home and talk to whatever country whatever country we were in, we were able to call home and tell them how we did. And it was the greatest. It was just really
I'd
fun.
never heard that before. That's
Yeah,
fabulous.
yeah, it was great.
I think anybody under the age of about 35 is going, what? You
Right?
didn't have WhatsApp and FaceTime and
No. And we didn't have to worry about we could talk as long as we wanted. They didn't tell us to get off, that it was too expensive. It was the greatest.
you were like your free call when you got arrested.
Yeah. Well, the faster you swam, the longer you had time on the phone.
Fantastic. Well, Mary, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts and memories. Um, for everybody that's listening, we do these videos all the time. We've got about 150 of them stored away. And in a second, a subscribe button will come up and a list of contacts if you want to follow marathon swimming. And thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Ned.